Thanks everybody for coming on out today. We're going to be doing a Python tutorial, beginner's tutorial. If you have no experience whatsoever in Python, then this will help you get started with creating your first program, something you can be proud of, something that will look cool, function well, and hopefully you'll just learn a little bit about programming. I know that I talk about ad nauseum in videos how important programming is. Hopefully by the end of this you will have at least an appreciation for it yourself, and hopefully maybe look to expand your knowledge on it in the future. Here's the deal. I am going to be using a software called PyCharm. You do not have to download it. You are perfectly fine using idle, which comes installed with Python. If you go to this link here, you can download the most recent version of Python, at least the most recent stable version of Python. That will get you started. It's going to install everything that you would need to do anything that I'm going to do in this video today. So, or in this stream today. So, just go there, download that. I can promise you the best way that you're going to learn in this stream is to ask questions. That's why I'm doing this live and not in videos like I used to be. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm gonna stop and use your questions to help teach. You can use Anaconda if you would like to, for sure. If you know what Anaconda is, chances are you are far past anything that we'll be doing in this tutorial. But I'm glad you're still here. It's nice to see you, Al Cobbs. What's the difference between PyCharm and idle? Okay, so idle is a very bare bones coding platform, I guess is the best way of putting it. And PyCharm is a little bit more advanced. It allows you to have a debugger, but you really don't need to. You don't need PyCharm for this. It'll make more sense when we hop into it. Luke, if your sub didn't show up, there's a chance that in the chat you might have an option to show your sub. That will allow you to see your sub. But thank you very much, buddy. Everybody can spam your Alexa loves for that man. Thank you for the follow, L Cobbs, as well. Idle is instant response as well as being less neat, right? Yeah, I mean, that it really, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's very bare bones. It does a little bit of color coding, but that's about it. But for the purposes of what we're doing today, it will be fine to use idle. If you're trying to get more into coding in the future, then I would recommend trying to use something like a Notepad++ or a PyCharm, or whatever your basic coding IDEs are that you enjoy. Then you can start to download those. But if you're just a beginner, idle's gonna work just fine for today. No worries about that. I do all my coding in a single cell of Google spreadsheets. That absolutely sounds horrible. Jonas Fanson with the 4-month resubscription. You madman. And Luke with the 6-month resubscription. Spam your Alexa loves for both of them. Thank you guys so much for stopping in and sharing your Prime subs and your regular subs and all your subs. Notepad++ or else. Notepad++ is good. Okay, let's get started here with doing some stuff, and then we'll get questions rolling. It's gonna be great. I'm excited for this. So let's get into a window. I'll kind of show you how I have my screen set up here shortly. I just have to do a little slow fade. You know how much I enjoy my slow fades. Hello, how are you guys? I'm here. I should turn my light on, but I'm not gonna do that because I'm a loser. Okay, let's get started. So you're in your first Python file window here. I have my screen set up where you're able to see, but then also in the bottom right, you're able to see what it's going to output when we actually run it, which is nice. And then of course I have my bit cup, but that's okay. Almayo facecam. Oh God, the audio. Sorry about that, guy. I have no idea what is wrong with my microphone recently. It was so good for a little bit. And then now it's just back to being a disaster again. Oh well. I'll get it fixed eventually. But you're in your basic window here. If you open up idle, everybody, you can go to File in the top left, hit New, and that will open up a new file just like this. Everything that you run in there will run just like Python code should run, which is great. So the first thing we're going to cover is a basic function, a print function. Basically, all you do, so this is a function. We have the name of the function followed by open and close parentheses. And we can put what we want to print inside of here in quotes. So we can say, hello world, because I'm a basic boy, basic programmer boy. So print hello world. We can run this code and we will see in the bottom right here that it has printed hello world. Pretty straightforward. So this is the print function. We're going to be able to define our own functions throughout the stream here. But this is kind of a built-in function that comes with Python that is real nice. Mike died. Please don't tell me that it's messed up again. I'm going to be very angry if it is. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'm going to continue talking. Nope, you're fine. Okay, cool. You're good. Mike is working 100%. Excellent. Thank you guys so much. So we can print hello world just like this. We can print anything in here. I mean, we can print Tyler sucks. And we can print that. We can send that straight to our output here, and it says Tyler sucks. Unfortunate, but true. I do suck. Really, that's all you need to know about printing until we get into printing variables. So let's talk about variables. What are variables? Variables are anything that you're going to store data in. So this could be numbers, this could be strings, this can be a Boolean, which we'll talk about shortly. So let's define some variables. In Python, you can really define variables as just about anything. So I can say, what if I wanted to print quotation marks? All right. If you wanted to print quotation marks, you would put a slash in front of them, as so. And this will, if I do... Stupid PyCharm is trying to auto-complete my thing, but you'd have to put a slash in front of it. And that signifies the escape character. We can talk about that a little bit later, but it's not important as of right now. What IDE is this? This is PyCharm that I am using right now. But that's okay. Or use single quotes. Yeah, I mean, that also works. But the escape character is fun because we can do a lot of fun stuff with the escape character later. So we can define variables as anything pretty much in Python as long as it's not a keyword in Python. So let's, for instance, let's define a variable called Tyler. In Python, you can basically just set a variable equal to something without doing any of your normal, int or... string. If you're used to other programming languages, that's not how it works in Python. It will auto-detect what your variable type is. So, for instance, we can say Tyler is equal to 1. And we can print our variable Tyler. And we will see that when we run this, it is going to print 1. Because that is exactly... yeah, if you wanted to do // you would just print 1/. That is true. But we can print 1 because Tyler is equal to 1. What we can also do is we can use another function called the type function. And we can say that, the type of, if I can actually learn to type here, the type of Tyler is equal to type, and then we put our variable Tyler into our function here. And then we can print the type of Tyler here. And we'll see what the type of Tyler is. And this is where we'll start to get a little bit more into different kinds of variables. Python is a scripting language. Absolutely. 100%. You are correct. So the type of Tyler, as we can see, is class int. So 1 here is an integer. And we have several different kinds of variables in Python that we can talk about. So we have integers, we have floats, we have strings, and we have booleans. These are the 4 main ones, and the 4 main ones that I'm going to talk about in this stream. So since we defined this as a 1, and then we got the type of that, and then we printed the type, we can see that that type is an integer. We can also just skip this middle process right here and say, you know what, let's just print out the type of Tyler. And this is going to work the exact same way and eliminate this line of code right here. So when we run this, you will see that we're still going to print out class int here. So type is a command that goes with variables. Yeah, it allows you to see the type of a variable in case you want to make sure, you know, is something this, is something that. It's a way to kind of confirm that to you, that the type is what you think it is. Thank you for the follow, Boomster DK. Much appreciated, buddy. So let's create some more variables. We're going to create, well, we'll use Relly because he's in chat right now. Relic is equal to 1.0. Okay, so you're looking at this, you're going, okay, well, if 1 is an integer, 1.0 is the same thing as 1, right? So let's see that. Let's get the type of relic, which is this 1.0, and we'll see if it's the same type as an integer here. No, it's not. It's a float. So what is a float? A float represents a floating point value. And essentially what this means is you have that decimal point at the end of your variable. That means that we can do all kinds of floating point values, such as 1.3, 1.73, 1 point blah blah blah, 3.1415926. We can make any floating point value, and it will be a float. Now, there are some interesting characteristics of floats that we'll get into in a little bit, but there's a big difference between, you know, Tyler and Relic here. They're two completely different variable types, which is interesting as we start to get into what more of the variable types are. Let's define another one. I'm going to use Jonas because he was in chat. Let's define Jonas as a string. We're going to define Jonas as Tyler sucks, and we are going to print the type of Jonas here, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to see that the type of Jonas is indeed a string, class string, right there, which Jonas is still here. Okay, well, Jonas, you know that Tyler sucks, so that works out fine. And your type is, of course, Tyler sucks. And if we were to print just straight up Jonas, this is going to work exactly how you would think it would. We're going to print the string Tyler sucks, and we're going to see that that class is a string, the type of that variable. Now, finally, we're going to define our last variable here. We're going to call it QCon, because I see you in chat. So QCon here is going to be equal to true. This is a Boolean. So a Boolean value is equal to 1 or 0. Okay, and in Python, 1 signifies true, and 0 signifies false. So essentially, this is just true or false, and we can define these as true and false. So the keywords are true and false, capital T, capital F, as you can see right here. Kind of bolded it in our IDE for us, which is nice. Chat will die if he covers recursion. Well, we'll see. DJ Sanctuary, thank you so much for the follow. Jazz, no worries. You'll catch on quickly if you want to stick around, buddy. But it will be on YouTube at the end of this. So QCon is going to be equal to true here. That is great. We can now print the type of QCon as we do. And I'm actually going to get rid of our Jonas types here as well. And we're going to see that this type is a Boolean, a bool, which is great. We can also change this to be false. And we'll see that the type of this is still a Boolean. But if we type, 1 is equal to true. So if we were to type that QCon is 1, and then do that, 1 is an integer. So that's not going to be a Boolean here, despite deep down in the system, it is indeed keeping this true as a 1 deep down. You don't really need to know about that necessarily, but just know that really it's storing this true as a 1 and this false as a 0. We can actually signify this in a certain way. So qcon is equal, let's do a print statement here, and this is getting into conditionals, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here. But let's do a conditional inside of our print statement to prove that true is equal to 1. Okay, so if we say that true equals 1, this is a conditional. We're testing if true is equal to 1, and this will give us a true or false answer of whether or not this is true. You can see that true is indeed equal to 1 down here. And if we were to say is false equal to 1, then this is going to come back as false, because false is actually equal to 0, which when we test that, you can see that false equals to 0 is true. I'm going to stop there and ask for questions. Is anybody lost? Because I will explain anything that I just did a little bit deeper if you have any questions. I know that I went a little fast. No questions? Gonna give it a couple seconds here. I'm lost, but I don't know what questions to ask. Well, what are you lost about, Galahad? No questions. I'm all good. Seems understandable so far. Tyler, if using a socket, how do you get all the non-host programs to realize the relative IP of the local device? I wish I could get into socket programming here, but not sure that's gonna come into here. Will this be on the exam? Yes, you will need to know variable types on the exam. I just need to know, where do I get Python? You get it from this link right there. Absolutely 100% go to that link and download it. I see that in Python you don't need a semicolon. If I put it because I'm used to it, will it still work? Yeah, actually it will. A lot of programming languages use the semicolons. It will not hurt anything. They don't do anything. We still run without any crashes. But you really don't need them in Python. What Python uses is Whitespace to kind of break stuff up. And I will you'll see this when we get into functions here shortly, that Whitespace really matters in Python. So we'll be heading there next. All seems okay so far. Kind of surprised considering the only language I know is Pascal. Python is very easy. Tyler, what's the difference between a double and a float? I mean, doubles don't exist in Python, to my knowledge. And really a double and a float are, when all comes down to it, they're the same thing. So I know you're probably just memeing, Jonas, but if you're not, I wouldn't worry about that. Okay, so let's do some functions now. So we already have seen two functions. We know we have the print function that comes with Python. We know we have the type function that comes with Python here. There are other functions in Python that we can use, such as, the int function, which will convert something to an int, a string function that will convert something to a string. But there are functions that we can define on our own here as well. So we can do that by using this def keyword. And def stands for define, and this will define a function for us. So let's define a function called add1. Okay, so here's our function name, and you can see that right now PyCharm's yelling at me. I have some red underscores here telling me that, yo, you got stuff all kinds of messed up here, and that's because we haven't actually fully defined this function yet. So we will add some open parentheses, close parentheses. This will allow us to pass parameters to our function, and we're going to do many examples of that soon. But for right now, we're going to have no parameters. And then there we go. We've defined our function. Define add1. Pretty straightforward. Now, when we put code into our function, you'll see that it auto-indented for me, which is pretty nice. And I'm just going to say we are in our function. And that is cool. It auto-indented because Python uses Whitespace. And if I were to tab back out here and then say print, are we in our function? And do that, what's going to happen here, because we aren't calling our function, we're never going to see this print statement because we're never calling our add1 function. We called our print function like this. We called our type function like this. We're not calling add1 anywhere here. So we're never going to go into this function's code. So let's do that for a second. I'm just going to comment out this by putting a pound sign or a hashtag for all you youngins in front of your code. You can comment it out and it won't run it. So right now we're going to run this code, and then the program's going to end because we're not actually ever calling that function. And we can see this shortly. We see are we in our function, but we never get to we are in our function. So let's get into our function. We will print add 1 here. And you will see, are we in our function? We are in our function because we have called our function here and we went into this chunk of code. Now, this is where whitespace is important because if I do this, right now our function is expecting there to be whitespace followed by some code. So it right now doesn't see any code in this function, and it's going to say that this function is empty. And this is going to create an error if we run this. You can see that it expected an indented block because it wanted you to indent whatever lines of code you had here. So let's do a little bit of indenting. Let's indent that. Let's indent that. And you know what? Let's indent that. And then let's run our code. So what is going to happen here? Well, we have 3 pieces of code inside of our function, and we have nothing outside of our function. So this is actually not going to do anything. We'll run this, and it's empty code. It didn't actually run anything. Now, if we do add 1 here, then we're going to see something interesting, which is called an infinite loop, because we are about to call add 1. It's going to come into our function. We're going to print we are in our function. We're going to print are we in our function. And then it's going to call add 1. And it's going to come right back up here. And it's going to keep on doing this. And keep on doing this forever. And I know that you're very interested in what this will look like. So I will run it. It totally crashed. It says the maximum recursion depth has been exceeded. I can scroll up on this and you will see that somewhere in here, it tried to call this repeatedly. Over and over and over and over and over infinitely. You know, it went on forever because it's going to continue to call that forever. You don't want to get stuck in an infinite loop. That is going to be quite a bad time for you. So it's technically infinite recursion. That is true. I'm just not going to talk about recursion in this. So I wanted to not use the word. Kazar Husky, welcome in, buddy. Good to see you. Okay, so we have our function here. It's called add 1. We're printing some stuff. Let's actually make this function do something. So we can manipulate variables in Python. And we're going to do exactly that. So right now I'm just going to put a keyword of pass on our function. Please explain recursion. I'll explain recursion if we can get to that in here. I have a lot that I want to talk about first before we get to recursions. Why don't the prints show up unless we type in the function? Because we aren't calling that function. That block of code is enclosed in that function. So if we don't call that function, we're never going to get those blocks of code. This is going to make a little bit more sense when we start creating functions that are actually doing something more than printing. And that's what we're going to get to right now. So right now, the pass keyword is just going to basically tell this function, don't do anything, okay? You have some code, so you're not going to yell about you needing an indented block, but don't really do anything right now. And I just want to do that so that we can manipulate some stuff outside of it, and then eventually add in our function. So we can manipulate variables. Let's call x 1, and then let's say that y is equal to x plus 1, okay? This does not require a rocket scientist to figure out what this is going to be. So if x is equal to 1 and then y is equal to x plus 1, that means we got y is equal to 1 plus 1. If we print y, we're going to see that y is indeed 2. That's pretty straightforward. That's basic math here. We can also say that y plus equals x. So what is this doing right here? This is going to, and actually this is not going to work because I'm an idiot. We have to define y first, and then say that y plus equals x. So what is this doing? This line of code right here is actually just saying this. Y is equal to y plus x. Okay? This also goes where we can say y minus equals x. And that line of code is equivalent. I'm just going to try to put this so that you can see it a little bit clearer here. This line of code is equivalent to y is equal to y minus x. It's just an easy way of writing it. So what will happen here if we have y is plus equal x, if y is 0, we're going to plus equal x, which is 1. So y is going to be equal to 0 plus 1. Y is going to be equal to 1. Now, since we have the y minus equals x after it, we're going to see that if y is 1 after completing this right here, then we have 1, or y, because we're redefining it, is equal to 1 minus x, which is 1. So y is going to go back to 0. We're basically just adding and then subtracting 1. And we can see this go right here, 0. Pretty straightforward. Just an editor. Thank you so much for the follow, buddy. Much appreciated. This does also work for multiplication. We can do y times equals x, and that will multiply. But if we start doing multiplication, we're going to start getting a little bit whack. Is there any shorthand for y equals y times x or y equals y divided by x? There you go, Cynic. I'm one step ahead of you, buddy. You want to be a little bit careful with division. I actually don't know if this is a thing. It apparently is. It's not yelling at me for it. But you want to be careful with division because, for instance, y is equal to x. Wait, hold up. X is equal to / equals y. This is going to give you a big error because anybody that knows any kind of basic math is going to know that dividing by 0 is not a good thing to do. And we will see that we get an error if we even try to do that because we are dividing by 0. So you do not want to divide by 0. You will enter into the shadow realm. And let's be honest, nobody wants to be in the shadow realm. So that is not good. So we can manipulate variables. That's awesome to know, isn't it? We can do all kinds of fun stuff with this. So let's do a little bit bigger of an example. Let's say that y is equal to 20, x is equal to 10, z is equal to 30, and then let's print x plus y plus z. Okay? So this is going to perform the addition inside of here. And it's going to add these together. So 10 plus 20 plus 30 is going to be 60. We can print that. We can see that it is 60. Now, we can also do a little bit of some funky stuff. How do I run the program? At the top of your window should be run. If you're in PyCharm, you can use the arrow up in the top right, which is what I've been clicking. If you're in idle, there should be a run module button at the top of your screen, and that will run it. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. So let's actually set a variable equal to this addition. So if we set, a equal to x plus y plus z, we can print a, and that's going to still be 60. But what is the type of a right now? Okay, so the type of a, if we all are on the same page here, it should be an integer, right? Because we're adding 3 integers together. We can run this and we'll see that the type of a is indeed an integer. But what if we wanted to do something like this, okay? The type of a is, and then we're going to add on this here, okay? So this is going to crash. Why is that going to crash? Because you can't, when you do a string print statement like this, you have to make sure that everything in your print statement is a string. And before Relly starts coming in with, there's other ways to print variables, I'm going to show that shortly. So what we have to do is we have to convert this type A to a string, okay? And we can do that with the string function, which is right here. So we can say str, boom, and boom. And we're going to change whatever this is inside of here to a string. And we're going to run that. So this should now run. If I just get rid of this miscellaneous code, we can run this and we will see the type of a is class int. For int result, you do use // you do. That is 100% correct. I wasn't going to get into integer division or modulo in this, but that is absolutely what you would do. So we can convert this to a string. What we can also do, if you don't want to use the plus sign, we can just put a comma, and this will then plug in a variable into your function here. So we can do this, and we'll see that this runs just as fine because we put in our comma there. And we can continue to add on even more of this. So we can say the type of A is type A, and the value of A is, and then we can put in the value of A, which is just A. And this will print out this as normal. The type of A is class int, and the value of A is 60. So pretty straightforward for manipulating variables and adding them together and printing them out. Is there any questions on that? Oh, I want to make sure I'm stopping for questions occasionally here. Why double space? I don't know. Shouldn't be. Are there floor and ceiling functions? There are. I'm not positive. Yeah, they don't come straight in. You'd have to you would have to import the math module right here. So what you can do with that is import math and then say math.floor and then pass in whatever your variable is. So we're going to talk a little bit more about passing in variables shortly when we actually work with our add one function. I wasn't going to get into the math module, but if you need to do those math related functions, you know, you got floor, ceiling is in here as well, ceil. You also have things like pow for a power of a variable. Jonas, you have a great day, buddy. Have fun with your Satan-based language without line terminators. I will. So there's a lot of things in that math module that we can use, but I'm not going to go over that in too much detail unless we have time later on here. And boy, time is flying by right now. Is there a difference between triple quotes and a pound sign? Yes. So a single pound sign is for a single quote and then nothing after that. The triple quotes will allow you to basically put a block of comments in here. This is good for documenting your code and doing stuff like that. This is another way to comment things. What's the advantage of converting type A to an integer if you can use the comma? So that basically it's more in, yeah, Relly's completely right. It's in string concatenation, which I do intend on getting to in this when we talk about strings, because we can manipulate strings to do all kinds of stuff, which is what we're going to get to. You don't need the space. You do not need the space right here. Whenever you do a variable, it's going to actually add in a space automatically, which is why I really should do that like that. I think maybe not. Maybe I need the space on that one. It adds a space somewhere. You know, you can play around with it to get it how you would like. Can you repeat the last step? I was doing the XYZ A thing. I don't think there's any other steps for you, Euros. You should be good there. Okay, let's move on here. Let's mess with our add one function. So let's pass things into our add one function. We have x is equal to 10, and then let's call add one here. And we're just going to say, thank you for the follow, Kazar Husky. Much appreciated. Adds a space everywhere. Well, there you go. Just ran it without the space, works fine. There you go. I'm glad it looks good. So let's do some stuff with add one here. So we can say add one, and we can pass in a variable. So we're going to pass in a variable. We're going to say thing to add, okay? Because I don't want you to get confused when we do this. And then we're going to say that thing to add, let's print thing to add plus 1, okay? So what our function is going to do, we're going to pass something into it. It's going to add 1 to it, okay? So outside of our function, because as we know, Whitespace separates our functions, we have a variable x that is equal to 10. Our function variable is local. Yes. Yes. I had to think about that for a second. Yes, function variables are local variables. So we have x equal to 10. We can pass in x into our function add 1. So what this is going to do is we're going to have x equal 10. We're going to pass 10 into our add1 function. And in add1, it's going to read in x as this new variable thing to add. And that can be a little bit of something that messes with your head to start out, because you're thinking, okay, if it's x down here, why is it thing to add in here? Well, the whole point of functions as a whole is that you're able to reuse your code. You're able to reuse your code. You're able to... Onassis, have a good day, buddy. Have a good night. You're able to reuse your code, and you're able to organize your code. It's really just organization and reusability are the most important aspects of functions. So if we have, x equals 10 and we're passing in x into here, then what if I had another variable, y, and I wanted to add 1 to y? Then I can pass in y as well, and it's still going to add 1 to y. So you can't set x to something in the function itself using thing to add. You can't set x to something in the function. So yeah, if I were to... I'm not sure I understand your question. X will not be changed by the function, no. And we can see this right now. So let's also print x out here. Okay? So what this is going to do, let's walk through this. We got x equals 10. We're going to pass 10 into add 1. It's going to read it in as thing to add, and then it's going to print thing to add plus 1. So thing to add at that point is equal to 10. It's going to print 10 plus 1. So it's going to print 11 here. But then it's going to come back out of the function, and it's going to say, okay, well, print x now. And you may think that x is going to be equal to 11 because we added 1 to it. But this variable here, we pass in, and it creates a reference to that variable. It doesn't necessarily change that variable in there. We can change it, and we're going to do that shortly. But it's not going to change it out here. So when we print x here, it's still going to be 10. So we're going to be printing 11, and then we're going to be printing 10. And we can see this. If we run, we have 11, and then we have 10. By doing add 1 x, you are doing x equals thing to add. Sort of. Yeah. In the system, it's going to set the value of x equal to the variable parameter that we've passed in. Okay? Does that make sense? This is cool? I'm glad this is cool. This is the point. I'm hoping that you found this cool. Are there any questions with this very basic function? Because we're going to be doing way more with functions shortly. I want to make sure everyone has an understanding of this before moving on. Because we can change x, and we're going to do that shortly. We're going to change x in this function. I just got here and my mind is exploding. Marusu, I highly recommend. Go download Python, buddy, and you can just play along with us. No, I tested mine. It works. Cool. That's good, dude. That's great. Okay, let's move on. What would happen if you replaced thing to add with x and x with thing to add? Okay, so we can actually... So whatever you pass into, this is why I didn't want to do this to start. This is what I wanted to do to begin with. We can do this right here. And you're probably thinking, okay, well now it's for sure going to be 11, 11. Because we're going to add 1. We're passing in x. We're going to add 1 to x. And then when it comes out, it's still going to be x. So it's going to be 11. This is still going to do the exact same thing. It's going to be 11, 10. And the reason is, inside the function, these variable names are not the same as here. Okay? Oh, no computer? That's a problem. I'm sorry, buddy. Then just try to learn. And then, eventually when you get yourself a computer, you can start coding yourself. But this is just basically a reference variable. It's a reference variable name. It does not impact what is outside of your function. This is confusing. I'm not going to deny that. Tonic, you are completely right. This is why you want to be as, detailed and specific when creating functions and creating code. That makes more sense. Just remember that the variable doesn't remember what happens inside the function. 100% correct. That is the definition of a local variable. In some ways, yes, you are right there as well, QCon. That part makes sense. That's basic math. There you go. So you can have two x's, but it's two different x's. That is very true in the way that you worded that. And we can pass in more than one variable to this, which we can get even funkier with this. So we can say that we're going to pass in xy into this function. But then down here, we only have one variable defined. So we can actually pass in xx into our function here. And we can say, let's add and print x plus y plus 1. So this is starting to get, this is some complex function work that we're doing. We're passing in 10 as x. We're passing in 10 as y. So when we print here, it's going to print 10 plus 1, which is 21. And we can see this when we print it, 21 and 10. So we can pass multiple parameters into a function. And we can pass the same parameter into a function. Is anybody's brain completely busted after that one? I didn't really want to get this complicated with functions, but I'm glad that you're somewhat interested in these funky situations you can do with functions. I know nothing about coding, but I'm somehow understanding. That is exactly what I want to hear. I'm glad you're here, Netro. Okay, now I'm lost. Okay, Galahad, ask away questions. How long have you been programming Python? Like 4-ish years now. I have been. Hey, Whitpui. How you doing, buddy? Where's the confusion, Galahad? Ask away. Everybody that has questions, ask away. I want to hear all of the questions. Just remember, variables in here don't equal variables in here. What is the purpose of typing x comma y? So these are parameters that we're passing into the function. If we say this, then Python's just going to be like, I don't know what to do with that because there's a space there. But by separating them with a comma, we can pass in tons of parameters into this. You know, including we can pass in strings into our functions as well. So we can say there's another string, and we can say, honestly, we could say that z equals that. And then we can pass in another variable up here called string. And then we can print a string here. And if we run this, you're going to see that it's going to print. Okay, no, it definitely doesn't work. You can do this in other programming languages. Apparently, you can't do that in Python. Please ignore me. This is what happens when you code like 7 different languages at a time. Pretend I didn't do that. But we can define a string out here that is blah, blah, blah. And then pass in a string, and it's going to store each of those variables into their respective spots in the function. So x is going to be x is going to be y, z is going to be string, and x is equal to 10, x is equal to 10, z is equal to that string right there. Does that make sense? Just pass the string, not the variable. Oh, yeah, that's what I could do. My bad. My bad. Yeah, you can just do this. And that will pass in the string. I'm getting brain dead. Oh, okay, now I get it. That's what I like to see. There we go. That's good. That's good. So this will work. This will print our string here. They're proportional to the order you type them. Exactly. Exactly. In my school, we were made to look like monkeys and use a site called Scratch. Yep, that's pretty much where everybody begins. I personally think that it's good to just jump people into Python. But at least schools are starting to teach some programming, which is a good thing. Okay, so let's completely revamp everything here. Let's get back to basics. We know we said, you know, x equals 10. We're adding 1 to x. And then if we print x here, after we do x plus equals 1, since realistically we are just the name of the function is add 1. This was the point all along. We know that when we run this code, we get 1110. We've been over this 1.5 billion times. What if we wanted to, when we have this x here, what if we wanted this to be 11? What can we do to make that 11? So let's return something from our function. And this is the keyword return. And this will pass back a variable to our line of code here. So what we can do is we can say, okay, well, let's say x is equal to add 1. Okay? So what is this line, what is this code going to do? So we have x equals 10. We're going to say, okay, well, x is now equal to add 1. Okay? Of x. So we're going to then jump to our function. We're going to say, okay, we're going to add 1 to x. So x plus equals 1, and we know that this line of code here is equivalent to x is equal to x plus 1. So that's just going to add 1 to x here. We're going to print that, so we're going to see that x is equal to 11. And then we're going to return x, which is equal to 11, and it's going to set that value equal to x out here. Does that make sense? So then when we print x here, we're going to get x equals 11. And when we print both of these, we're going to see 11, 11, make a dang wish. How many coding languages do you know? Do you know C#? I haven't done a lot in C#, but the languages I know are Python, Lua, a little bit, C, C++, some VBA, MIPS 2000, Java, JavaScript, some CSS, some HTML. What else do I know? That might be it. I know a good bit. Python is my main. Like, if I have a language of choice, I do Python. Okay. No C#. I don't have a lot of experience in C#. Damn, I could have used this tutorial when I was struggling with that Isaac mod. Had no idea what I was doing. It's good to know a little bit of basics. And Lua is actually Lua is what Isaac mods are coded in. Lua is a derivative of Python. So the syntax is very, very similar for Lua from Python. So when you change a value in a function and return it, that permanently changes the value. Only if you set it equal to something here. If we do this right here, it's going to return this x, but it's never going to send it anywhere. So when we do this, it's still going to be 1110. But if we set it equal to something here, like y equals, then it's going to return that value to whatever's on the left of the equal sign. Okay. Yes, it does make sense. I am learning. Also, you said Python is your main. My main is Donkey Kong. I love bad Smash memes. So what happens here, so just to kind of clear things up. So if we set add 1 equal to y and we print x, clearly y is not x. So this is still going to be 1110 right now. But if we were to print y as well, then we will see that we have 1110 11 because we returned the 11 from here into y. You see the game I'm going to be making, that roguelite in C#. C# is a good language to code games in. Terraria is one of the largest ones known as that is in C#. So it's definitely a good language to do it in. Sorry if I'm asking dumb questions, but you type really fast and I'm trying to type in the same stuff. I miss half the things you're saying. No worries, Galahad. I want you to ask as many questions. You're not dumb here. You're not dumb at all. I want you guys to ask questions as much as possible. C# is good. C++ is better. I enjoyed my time that I spent coding in C++, but like I said, I haven't done a lot with C#, so I can't say too much about that here. I've not watched a beginner's tutorial in a good few years. That's a really nice change from the advanced stuff I always want to learn. Dude, trust me, I'm with you. Doing this stuff is refreshing. Once you start throwing in random APIs and stuff, ugh, that's not the best. Are there any big games made in Python? There have been, but I'm telling you right now, Python, there's different languages for different things. Python is more of a scripting language, which means that, you know, you can write scripts to impact stuff on a computer, push out changes really quickly, store stuff to files. It's good at that kind of stuff. But it's not great at games because the data collection and garbage collection in Python is not great. So basically, when you're handling memory, which we're 100% not going to get into at all in this, when you're handling memory, which games mess with memory a lot, languages like C++, C#, C, those are better for games. Java, not really, because I hate it. But even Java is better for a game than Python. It's just not the best for writing a game. So, hey, Epic Lander, welcome in. One of those crypto miner viruses that got on Steam was programmed in Python. I guess that's technically a game. Isn't one scripting in Python? I'm not positive. Oh, is it OBS scripting in Python? I believe so, actually. Minecraft is made in Java, correct. And this is why Minecraft looks like crap, but also runs horribly. Not anymore. They have optimized it a lot, but they remade Minecraft in C a while back, and all of a sudden it is significantly faster than it was in Java because they actually could handle the garbage collection. So for those that are asking why is it not good to dev a game in Python, what happens behind the scenes when we do stuff in Python, Python is handling all of the resources that we're using. You know, when we trash variables, it's doing that on its own. When we store stuff to memory, it's doing that on its own. So with a lot of other languages like C and C#, C++, you handle the memory yourself. And you kind of tell it when to do stuff. You can get a lot more in depth with how it handles those resources. And that allows you then to make a game run smoother, make a game run faster, which are all important things for a game because you don't want to have people running at, 10 FPS, which is what, for a long time, people that didn't have great computers with Minecraft, that's how it was, despite the game looking like garbage, like 99% of the time. And that's why you don't want to code a game in Java, because Java's garbage collection is very similar to Python's. You don't handle the garbage collection that it's doing. Hopefully that makes sense. I didn't really want to get into memory at all on this stream, but that's okay. I'm making my game in GML, which is basically JavaScript, but allows you to be even messier. Excellent, dude. Gonna play a game with my brother. See you, chat, and Tyler. Have a good one, Astro. Nice to see you, buddy. Did you know that originally Minecraft mods were supposed to be made in Lua? It really would have been the same as Java. I mean, so... Oh boy, I really did not want to get into this. Python is an imperative language, which means we use functions. Java is an object-oriented language, which means that everything is combined in objects and classes. I was going to try to cover classes a little bit today. I am not going to be able to cover classes today because we're going to be lucky if we can cover strings today, let alone classes. But just know that there are different kinds of languages. Not everything is going to be like this. And certain languages are better for certain things as well. What do you feel is the worst script overall? I don't really understand the question there, but thank you for the bits, buddy. If I learn Lua, I'm going to be able to dive in from the depths, AI customization. Going to be making my own guns now, literally. Lua is, it's pretty easy to use as a whole. Even the Isaac API is pretty easy to use. It's just that it's garbage. Like, it's easy to use, but it doesn't give you a lot to mess with. But I can tell you, if you learn stuff from this stream and then go watch like a Lua tutorial for Isaac, you're going to understand it significantly more.